Hey Kids Cook Real Food, Katie Kimball here, and I am so honored to have Dr. Sheila Kilbane with me here today. I had the honor to meet Dr. Kilbane in person, and we just connected immediately because we both are on a mission to improve kids' health in America. So let me just introduce her to you real quick, and then we have a really hot topic to talk about today. Dr. Kilbane is an integrative MD who's dedicated to helping children thrive in health by getting to the root cause of what ails them. Although she's local in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, she's developed an online course to support families everywhere to have healthy kids and happy moms, and we'll be sure to link to that anywhere we share this video. She's a pediatrician who's a voice for children, an ear for parents, and a solution for other doctors trying to spread the word of more holistic, natural health within the traditional medical system, which is awesome. She really listens to kids, and she totally empowers families to take charge of their own health. Today, we're going to talk about inflammation and how inflammation is at the root cause of so many issues we see in kids, and how parents and families can quench that inflammation and become healthier. Thank you for being here, Dr. Kilbane.
Yes, absolutely. I'm super excited and I love what you're doing, and it all starts in the kitchen. So if we can teach our kids to cook, that's half the battle.
I love that. I love that. Well, let's give our listeners a little background here. You offer families 7 steps to health in your Healthy Kids, Happy Moms system. What are those steps? Just super brief overview, and then how do they fit together?
Yeah, so the 7 steps are the assessment. So that's the first thing, is that it's like driving a car. When you know where you are, then you know where you're going. And it's assessment of the kids and the whole family's health. You can look at patterns. The second one is inflammation and illness. So all of illness is inflammation, and it's simply a description of different symptoms. And so we delve into that. The third step is the triggers of inflammation, and that just helps us. That's where we really get down to the root of things. The fourth one is gut health. 70% of our immune system happens in the gut, and so we dive deeply into the gut health. And the fifth one is food and nutrition, which is where this course comes really, the work that you do comes into play. And then the 6th step are supplements. And then the 7th is the roadmap. So how, once you get the kids into balance, how do we keep this? And what does that look like moving into the future?
That's awesome. You can feel, hearing those steps, that it's like beginning to end this journey to health. And not that there's an end, not that we hit this point where we're like, oh, we're perfectly healthy forever now. But, it's probably just something that kind of can keep cycling. So
it's like an onion, and is that as soon as you start to peel one, and that's why we do it in steps, because if we did this all at once, you would turn around and run out the door. But once you go through the process and you see what a huge transformation your family is able to make, and everybody's still in the household and you're still talking to each other, there may be little blips along the way, but you can absolutely do this.
Makes perfect sense. So today we're focusing in on step 3, which is that inflammation. And we're going to talk a little bit about maybe how to identify if inflammation is causing some problems in your family, and you need to work through something with a practitioner, or like how to prevent inflammation from even getting started, best of all.
Which is my favorite.
Yes. Absolutely. So why is inflammation such a problem right now in America?
So it's multifactorial, and the way that I list it out is that there are 5 triggers of inflammation, and when you understand that, then you can really pinpoint where it is in your family. So it's food, environmental allergies, environmental toxins, stress, and infections, and all of those can act in equally. Infections, like an ear infection, we tend to put a huge amount of weight on that. And yes, that has to be taken care of. And what we need to do if those ear infections are recurrent is we need to say, okay, why is the immune system not kicking in and taking care of those? Because we know that upwards of 65% of ear infections will go away on their own. And we get into this cycle with certain kids where they'll continue to get infections. So the inflammation that is coming from any one of those sources is not allowing the immune system to do our job. And I think of everything on the cellular basis. And so if we have a cell, nutrients need to go in and out, the cells need to move fluidly. And if we have if we're eating the wrong foods, if we have a lot of the omega-6 and 9 fats, we've got a cell wall, it's got a rigid cell wall, it's just not going to be functioning properly. And that goes whether it's a gut cell, a cell in your brain, a cell in your lungs. So it's the cells across the body. So when we incorporate nutrition with that inflammation, that's where we get the biggest impact. And so clearly that, one of the big points that we have control over is the nutrition that's going to be triggering inflammation. And what we've done in this country is we've started to eat foods that are just not nutrient-dense foods. So we're eating things like chips and cookies and crackers. And about 150 years ago, we started cooking with a lot of vegetable oils that are high in the omega-6s and 9s. And so our ratio of these not so good fats went way high.
I didn't realize it was 150 years ago. Really? That long ago?
It was a while ago.
Okay. So these are like practically label reading wise, this is corn, cottonseed, canola, any other triggers we need to watch for and try to kick out of our pantries?
The thing that I really look for is if it's not olive oil or avocado oil, it's in the cooking, or coconut oil.
Okay.
We really want to take a look at it because there are some great oils, but they're just not ones that would typically things would get cooked in. And it's so hard to find a packaged snack food that doesn't have. Just think about it. Think olive oil, coconut oil, or avocado oil. And if you're looking at a lot of the other things, and I'm not saying there are some other oils, but those are going to be the main ones that any kind of a snack food would be cooked in.
I see a lot of sunflower and safflower in healthy foods. Are those masquerading as health foods, or are they better?
Those will be better. Those would definitely be better than like canola and corn oil. And that's so yes. So those are things to start to look for. And if we are automatically decreasing our packaged and processed foods, that's going to take all of those oils down, and that alone can be a huge shift.
Okay, to reduce inflammation.
Our inflammation. And so that's the thing is when because I know that you're big on what is a good trick or a tip, and that's one easy good hack that you can do to really start bringing things down is just to, if one meal a day you think we're not going to do any packaged or processed for this meal, and I love that meal to be breakfast.
Okay.
So I want to explain a little bit further though. So if we are walking around and we're very inflamed, and I can see these kids from a mile away. They've got dark circles under their eyes. Sometimes they're mouth breathers. You can almost hear them breathing the Darth Vader. They'll have bumps on the back of their arms or their cheeks. They may have constipation, abdominal pain. They'll be getting headaches. And those are the kids, they might have red cheeks, they might have red ears. And those are the kids that we really want to say, okay, they've got all of these signs of inflammation. We really need to start looking at their diet to bring that inflammation down.
Wow.
When you're very inflamed, if you get a virus, that's like sending your whole system. It's like a match on gasoline. Your system just goes boom, and it's almost like a hyper response to a virus or a bacteria or whatever it is. Versus if you had a really good immune system, you would get a tempered response. It would take care of the virus or the bacteria, and then you might be sick for a day or two, but then typically your immune system is going to help you work through it.
Wow. Now, you mentioned some fats to avoid. Is it sort of a balance scale? Are there foods that we can infuse into our kids' diets that will help that inflammation calm down?
Absolutely. So most kids and adults in this country need more omega-3 fats. So those are the fats that you're going to get from cold water fish like salmon. You know, my preference is cold water sockeye salmon. Tuna is another one. You just have to be careful about the sourcing. Chia seed, flaxseed, and hemp seed are vegetarian sources of omega-3 fats. And then there are also, so those are going to be the omega-3 fats, and blueberries have a little bit of omega-3 fats. So there are some other foods that are going to have a little bit, but the powerhouse, salmon, is a huge omega-3 driver. And then there are other foods that have some fats that are good for us. They're not necessarily the omega-3 fats, but those are going to be things like avocado, coconut oil, olives are going to have some good fats. So, and especially with a baby's developing brain, we really want to make sure that we're getting enough of those good, healthy fats in those, you know, in the first 3 years, but of course throughout our lifetime.
Sure, and thank goodness more or less in the mainstream, the low-fat movement is starting to die, because that was really harmful for kids, don't you think?
Absolutely. And when you look at the time frame of all of that, it was low fat, and that's also when high fructose corn syrup came into play. You know, and then a little bit later, we started to have Roundup, which when we had foods, our foods just had higher pesticide content. So it's been kind of the perfect storm. So if we just use some common sense and go back to eating real food, that really is one of the biggest solutions for all of us.
That's good to know. I mean, that's comforting to hear, you know, that in some ways it's so simple. In other ways, it's really hard practically if you're used to eating more processed foods and your life is busy and, you know, you're seeking out the fast food. What would you say? I mean, you're right. I'm all about the practical. Do you have 3 or 4 doable steps that busy parents can take to start to quench that inflammation in their kids?
Yeah, absolutely. So that first step would be just to shift breakfast. And if you can do something like an omega-3 fat, or I'm sorry, a green smoothie, because you can get those omega-3 fats in with chia, flax, or hemp seed. And that's going to get you away from cereal, and it's going to get you a really good nutrient dense because you'll have some greens in there. And then the second thing is if you're not doing a lot of fermented foods, you can do a probiotic in your diet, in the kids' diets, and a good high quality. There are a lot of high quality probiotics that have come onto the market now. I mean, certainly since I started practicing integrative medicine, there are a lot more options now. And really there are 2 more I'm going to give you, and that's just increasing the greens, which you can also do with that smoothie, and then adding an omega-3 fat if the kids aren't eating the cold water fish, and if, you know, if you're not consistently able to get the chia, flax, and hemp seed in them.
Okay. And when you say, because you just said add an omega-3 fat, do you mean like a supplement type of addition?
You can do a fish oil. Yeah, a fish oil, also algae, there's flax.
Sure. Oh, okay. What do we look for in a fish oil? Because, man, you start reading articles about, oh, it's unsustainable and it's contaminated. And, you know, I know environmental toxins is one of the pillars that causes inflammation. So we got to be careful there. Do you have kind of a cheat sheet list that we need to look for on those bottles?
I really have. There are a couple of brands that I look for, and the one I use the most is called Carlson's.
Okay.
And they have liquids. I really encourage you though with the kids to stick with the liquids, because when you get into those gummies and the chewables, and those they have a lot of sugar in them. They have a very small amount of omega-3 fats. So even if they're not huge fans of the fish oil, just do, you know, even if you're doing 1/4 of a teaspoon, because they're going to be getting it in their diet. This is just going to be a little bit of an extra boost for them.
Okay. What like if I want to say to maybe a spouse, I think we should invest in fish oil and include this in our routine because it's going to reduce inflammation. What, like, reduce inflammation might not mean anything to someone who hasn't just heard you talk. So like physically, this is going to help our kids do X, Y, Z.
Because it gets incorporated in all of the cell walls, it is a full body solution. So the pharmaceutical industry knows how to decrease inflammation. They are highly invested in this. So there's ibuprofen, there's steroids, which we inject, we put topically, we inhale them, we give them IV. And the omega-3 fats are a long-term solution to that, so that we are keeping healthy cells, so that our body's need for other anti-inflammatory medications is going to be highly decreased. So you can think about omega-3 fats as a way, it's an immune system supporter, and it's an anti-inflammatory. Because whenever we get cell breakdown, which we're always getting in our system, our cells are going to break open, and those omega-3 fats are going to either have a neutral or an anti-inflammatory impact. Whereas if we have predominantly those omega-6s and 9s, we're going to have an increase in inflammation. So it's like a long-term insurance that your kids are going to get through the winter time, hopefully get through any colds without needing antibiotics. So it also is important for our neural development and our cognitive functioning, because it's going to allow our neurotransmitters to do their jobs more easily. Because with this healthy cell wall, so the neurotransmitter it's going to bind to its receptor on the cell wall, and it's going to be able to send its signal. So, attention issues, asthma, anything, and for a healthy child, it's going to be huge support to the immune system.
Okay, cool. I mean, to me, that is motivating, right? Like, let's help our kids kick their colds faster. Let's avoid cold and flu season. We won't have to hopefully go to the doctor during the winter for antibiotics. We can avoid, if I think about what steroids are prescribed for, they're prescribed for, skin issues like eczema is a sign of inflammation, right? Autoimmune diseases, and, what else did you just say? Oh, and I'm thinking with the brain, like, attention issues, mental health. I've just been doing a lot of research on anxiety and how intense really the situation is right now with anxiety in kids. School counselors are saying it's the biggest problem that they're seeing as far as increase over the last few decades. Our kids are so anxious. So the omega-3s would be more of a calming effect on the brain. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. I just did a talk yesterday at the hospital, and we just went through case after case in our clinic of anxiety, attention issues, emotional swings, of the kids that once we use the integrative process, which includes food and goes through those steps, these issues, they either completely disappear or they decrease significantly.
Wow.
Food and inflammation play a big role in anxiety, ADHD, and all of those, the illnesses that we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's mainstream yet that happens, but I know my daughter is 10, and she came home and said, oh, so-and-so, she has a child in her class who she described, she says, we have an anger issues kid. I was like, oh my gosh, we never used those words when I was a child. Okay, so she has an anger issues kid in her class, and she said, oh, so-and-so had his first big outburst today, and it was right after snack, and Mom, you should have seen what he had for snack. He had a Rice Krispie treat, I think, with sprinkles on it. And then, so I'm proud of her that she's connecting food with behavior, but I don't think most people are.
No, and I think you're right. And I think I live in this bubble because the families that I work with, we're all being so hyper-focused on nutrition. Mm-hmm. And that's just not the case for, if you go to schools, and we just really want to, it's again, I often talk about, we give food to our kids and we feed them foods in schools that most of us adults won't eat.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know. The school principals will throw away the cupcakes, but they still let them come in for birthdays.
Yes, yeah.
It's such a bummer. I always like to end, Dr. Kilbane, with a real message of hope. And you just mentioned the perfect idea that you were sharing some stories. Do you have one little anonymous story you can share just of a child who was able to beat inflammation and go back to kind of normal, healthy living?
Yeah, and I'll give you one because it's such a great story. It's a severe. She was severe at the beginning, but know that it can be mild, and if you can see how much the severity can shift, you know that if it's even more mild, how much your child can shift. So this was a little girl that came to me with many diagnoses: anxiety, mood swings. She was even had something called pandas that she was being treated for, and she was out of school at the end of the school last year. We started seeing them in June, so it was after school, and the whole goal was, can we get her back into school? She was on Motrin twice a day because that would decrease her mood swings. And so and they were on a pretty high processed diet. So all we did was start to shift her diet. We added in the appropriate supplements, and I do a little bit more detailed testing, but this was before she started to see the changes, before we had even done many of the changes based on her testing. And the mom, I just saw the mom a couple of weeks ago. They're in school for 3 weeks now. She's doing great. She's not having meltdowns. She's been happy. And it just is, I mean, that's what makes it worthwhile, right? What I do every day, because this little girl, she's gotten her life back, and it was, we just have to think about what we're putting in our mouths. So there's so many things that we can do, and it's little. And I promise you, for this family, they took it little by little. It was not a huge shift.
That is
sugar. Yeah.
okay. That is really an amazing message of hope. And in addition to her healthy, happy life now in school, like now she will have good nutrition habits to pass on, you know, it to be a healthy adult and pass on to her kids. So it's a beautiful thing. And gosh, I love hearing that even before doing the testing, just shifting the diet was able to solve a lot of problems. That is amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kilbane. Again, just really important for parents to understand issues of inflammation, how the fats we're eating can really throw us out of balance, and getting those more greens, more omega-3s, and probiotics, especially at breakfast. It's so easy. It's not that hard. It's great.
No, not that hard at all. Yeah. Thank
Good.
you
Well,
for what you do.
yes, we are always teaching kids to eat real food and cracking the produce section open to them with our knife skills. And again, you know, readers and listeners, just come back next week for more tips on being the best healthy parent you can be, raising healthy children with recipe demos, expert interviews, and parenting strategies. We're so grateful for you. Thank you.